Coogs House. All right. So April 26th was a big day for the Houston Cougars in a bunch of ways. But if you didn't have Twitter, you might have missed it. And frankly, it was quite entertaining.
You are Locked On Cougs, your daily podcast on the Houston Cougars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Cougs, the daily podcast all about your Houston Cougars. I'm your host, Houston-born teacher and coach Parker Ainsworth, here to break down all things Cougs. If you're a U of H fan or just a hater can step by, please be sure to subscribe down below. That way you can get the latest on the Cougs into your newsfeed each and every day. We appreciate you making Locked On Cougs your first listen of the day. Welcome back to the YouTube channel, and it is good to see you again. We are rapidly approaching that 1250 mark. Remember, every 250 subscribers are giving something away. This time we're giving away one of these hats. I like that hat. Yeah, look, cougar paw on the front. You got the Locked On the side. Give one of those away at 1250. And so, gotta hit subscribe so we get there. Like and comment down below so we know you're entered. If after talking more about we'll just say we're talking about Wednesday, and it was just a day you don't want to talk about too terribly much. Make sure you comment down below by telling us. Okay, this is a topic I got in debate on actually earlier. When it comes to the candies, the Starbursts, the Airheads, all those sugary candies that aren't chocolate covered, they're just like more fruity. Do you have a go-to color you go in everything? Starburst, whatever. Tell us down below. All right, so we're going to talk some about Alton McCaskill, folks going to the Cougs. We're going from the Cougs to Colorado. That was an interesting Freudian slip. Also talk some about the Twitter beef that ensued afterwards. And at the end, I want to start to investigate. I say start because I think this will be an ongoing thing. This NIL gap that we are seeing here, right? But first and foremost, something I didn't come across until checking out people's Twitters on Wednesday. Shouts to Jack Freeman. Jack Freeman, starting center, tough guy, big guy, likes laying that extra block. We call that finding work where I coach. But going out and cracking somebody like that, really great highlights of him doing that. He's got a link supporting his mom as she fights a cancer diagnosis, and so we're gonna plug that a little bit. First of all, Jack, I'm sorry I didn't see that back in January. I would have plugged it back then and been plugging it ever since. We're going to put that in the description of the video. Jack's a great football player. He's also a great kid. He's a very charismatic guy. When you watch there's a video of him mic'd up at a practice one time. Funny guy. At one time this past spring. He's done it before, I guess. But anyway, so check out that link. Click support if you can, and if you saw it before, thank you for supporting before. And Jack, again, I'm sorry I didn't come out the first time. All right, again, this first segment is called Colorado Cougs because we are looking at, frankly, a handful of Cougs that may be going to Colorado. Now, this all sparked on, if you were under a rock, I guess, Tuesday night. Frankly, in the middle of recording a different episode, the news dropped that Alton McCaskill was transferring, hitting the transfer portal. He had not officially filed that yet. He would do that the next morning. But in the course of Tuesday night, it got leaked that he talked to Dana. Dana talked to the press, took a lot of the program kind of by surprise, it sounded like. Frankly, as recently as the end of spring ball, he was very much all in on Houston. U of H was very much home. We talked about the support and the fan base and all those different types of things you want to hear from a star and starter. And literally less than a week before the Tuesday night leak, he was on Fox 26 talking about how great of an opportunity and how grateful he was for linking Cougs, connecting the football team with the Daspit law firm, right? So, like, those things seem to feel like he was here for the long haul. We also did the deal last year when he got hurt in spring ball and he was worried about his own NIL money because some of it was incentive-based. He ran a GoFundMe and people supported the crap out of that too, right? Like, people really stood up and helped out. The interesting thing on Alton McCaskill was the leak hits local news at like 10 to 9 local time. And by 9 o'clock, you had national outlets talking about him being linked to Colorado. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything more foul than other programs, that there is maybe foul play, but it was an interesting connection to see for sure between Alton and Colorado and Deion Sanders. For what it's worth, I'm talking the big dogs on 3, 24/7. The Athletic, Bruce Feldman had it in his first national level. The first national story tweet was Bruce Feldman, and he had it in that tweet. Dave Campbell's had it out by the morning in a couple different avenues. Everyone has been connecting Alton McCaskill to Colorado since moments after the story leaked at all. And this is a kind of leak that caught Dana by surprise very, very, very clearly by his own words. Now, for what it's worth, some of that could be connecting dots. Colorado has a booming NIL program. Alton McCaskill has expressed need for that kind of cash in the past. I mean, lots of college kids could use it, frankly. And Deion Sanders is a exciting coach. Maybe some relatability there. Deion was an obviously tremendous football player. Alton may have some, history lessons where he's learned about that in the past. He's a little bit young to have watched any of that. But the other piece is that Colorado lost 4 running backs, 1 to graduation and 3 transfers, right? Colorado has lost over 50 players, 2 transfers in the last month, or the last couple weeks alone. So all of that's a little bit icky in that it feels like, why was this connection being made so fast? I have heard and seen people on Twitter, without throwing names out there, like he may have visited or may have talked to people or whatever at a more kid-to-kid level, not like talking with higher-ups that could ever get anyone in trouble, right? I got the big thing I think that connected these dots after all those tweets initially come out was in the middle of the morning on Wednesday morning, you had a tweet leak that, or a tweet come out that both Cameron Johnson and Trevante Sylvester, Cameron Johnson being probably the best offensive lineman left in transfer portal, and Trevante Sylvester being a Houston backup, but a guy that's transitioning from defensive line to offensive line. Both Cougars last year are both visiting Colorado this weekend. Now Cameron is from Pearland, was All-American Athletic Conference last season, and for what it's worth, was offered under the previous staff to Colorado out of high school. So while it was a gut punch when he entered the transfer portal, I think people were connecting him to Colorado as early as then because he'd shown interest in the school before Deion was there, right, when they were not very good. Trevante Sylvester, if I can get my words right here, only other offer he had at high school was Louisiana Tech. He's transitioning and playing offensive line spot. Didn't look like he was going to get on the field at Houston, but A, he may be looking for that, or B, maybe looking for somewhere to get back to the defense side of the ball. And Colorado needs a lot of people, period, right now, right? And so those all, kind of feel like there's this wave of people going. And that, I think, has people concerned, which gets the concerns we get onto Twitter in a moment. But what is Deion doing in Colorado that's attracting Cougars? Well, first, he's literally cleaning house. When Coach Prime showed up in December, he said publicly to the media and to the players' faces themselves in a recorded deal that was very much like part of the marketing campaign that they went 1-11 the year before and they needed to get better or get in the transfer portal. And he was not shy about saying it. Now, I'm not one that likes people that are shy or beat around the bush or whatever, and I'm not saying he should have done that. But very quickly had folks fleeing Colorado to get in the transfer portal, go somewhere where they had either been recruited previously or worked with other coaches or whatever, because a lot of these, obviously none of these kids were recruited by Deion. Deion mentioned he was bringing in his own guys. And as in this more recent portal expansion of the transfer portal window in after spring football, you've had over 50 guys from Colorado in the pair of the windows going, including a couple of guys in the more recent April transfer portal window that enrolled in Colorado in January in that transfer portal and are already leaving. It's a lot of messy stuff. And I think the thing that struck me the most, I keep using the word icky because I think of like I have an ick or whatever. The thing that struck me the ickiest about what Deion's done is he went on Pat McAfee on Wednesday, unrelated to Alton, but on Pat McAfee on Wednesday, and commenting about kids coming in and out and reference it to like when you move into a nice new house, you've got to replace the furniture. And I think the thing that rubbed me the wrong way is that the kids aren't furniture, dude. These are human beings. These are kids. These are kids that like you signed up to take care of. I'm not saying you have to play them. I'm not saying you have to lie to them. I'm not saying you have to be dishonest in how you treat them or in talking with them about playing time. But you signed up to shepherd this program as it was. And if you want to get rid of all the kids, you've got to make sure that like you're taking care of the kids you signed up to take care of and help them exit. Do things like give them their film, right? We have kids all over the transfer portal that don't have game film, and it's customary to take practice film with you to send to other coaches, and they're locked out of their practice film. They can't get out. And I'm not saying that he has to have the connection because he didn't recruit these kids. But you got people saying that he doesn't know any of their names. You got people saying that he doesn't like. I mean, I don't get the appeal. I'm not saying that that's necessarily where Alton's going. I'm not saying that's necessarily where Cameron or Trevante are going. I am saying that it's interesting that they're all linked to that spot as the roster's cleaning house and turning over. I also think it's interesting to point out that like Colorado stunk for a long time. Frankly, the last time they were good was when they were in the Big 12 in the earliest days of the Big 12, right? And so like that this program can flip that's interesting. For the folks following at home, before we transition and talk some about Twitter, Alton has already, as of recording this podcast, received a couple of offers that he's public about, one of which was Florida, and the other which I believe was Arizona State, if I remember correctly. He has not, as of the recording of this podcast, publicly tweeted out that he is offered by Colorado or that he is visiting Colorado. Both Cameron and Trevante are going to visit. That's an official report. So we'll see and be following that, obviously, as things go. And frankly, if they all were to commit, then they warrant a whole other episode just on the Colorado Cougs and what's happening there. I want to talk some about what's happening here, or at least virtually here on Twitter in the second segment. But first, I want to talk to you a little bit about Built Bar. Now, Built Bar is a great protein bar. It's a great breakfast for me as a teacher on the go, because when you're looking for a delicious snack but don't want all the sugar and calories, you need to have the best tasting protein bar ever. Built, trust me, you got to try this. If you're like me and you want to have a healthier snack choice, but you don't want to compromise on taste, I've got just a thing for you. Built Bars, Built Puffs too. Built Bars are amazing and are healthy and taste amazing. Got my words backwards. Seriously, they taste amazing. You won't think that they're good for you. You got to try this. What makes them so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real dark chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. They come in unbelievable flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, and more. I'm not sure how Built does it, but these bars taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. What's better is that they are healthy at just 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein in most bars. And now you don't even have to wait to get a box. For years, we've been talking about ordering Built Bars at Built.com. And now you can go to your local Walmart or Sam's Club and get them. You can also get specialty flavors, unique flavors at Built.com still. That's right. You can head to your nearest Walmart today, walk to the pharmacy section, and grab yourself a box of Built Bars. You can pick up a box of 4 bars from cookies and cream, double chocolate, or coconut puff. If you're close to Sam's Club, that's more your jam. You can go grab a 13-bar box with hit bar flavors like peanut butter puffs, churro puffs, brownie batters. Trust me, thank me later. I'm going to recommend with my Locked On official title here, that you go get the coconut almond. That's my favorite. Again, I'm an Almond Joy kid, but that is the one I would go with if I were you looking for one right now. All right, so I want to talk a little bit about Twitter, because Twitter is as serious as you want to make it, right? Some people use it as their primary news source and following news entities. Some people use it for more like on-the-ground journalism, and journalists will be tweeting out things that they're doing. In the case of football, typically it's fun to watch the newsbreakers and see what they're talking about. But on Wednesday, April 26th, the show was not the newsbreakers, but the newsmakers, in a way that was really, really fun. I guess technically it started the night before on April 25th. But in light of the Alton McCaskill news, the Houston Cougar football roster and some of the former players, more recently former players, kind of had a field day going through and tweeting about it. And so I pulled some of the best or some of the most important ones to talk through, because I think that they kind of shed some light on something that may have been going on in the program that we may hear about a lot more later, but we'll see. So first, the night of when the news broke of Alton McCaskill, Parker Jenkins tweeted out that it's just 1 month till the new era starts, and we're going to be all right. for what it's worth, Parker Johnson is a Klein product, right? He's coming to play running back at the University of Houston, a highly touted high school recruit. And frankly, I'm sure a guy like him sees Alton McCaskill news and people freaking out about it on Tuesday night and decides to tweet this with one of his recruit pictures as like a guys, I got this. And I appreciate that out of Parker Jenkins. Forever team Parker Jenkins. First name's also Parker, so that helps some. Later in the night, Matthew Golden, who is fun to follow on social media, to say the least, said that people, or just said, I should say, that stay on that side when the tables turn, handshake emoji, 100 emoji in an agreement. So something about like splitting up and staying on your sides. Again, alluding it appears to be to Alton McCaskill. Now it's interesting because Matthew Golden is one of the two best returning football players on the roster. Probably the other was going to be Alton McCaskill. And so Golden is maybe drawing a line in the sand a little bit about what's going on at U of H. Also worth pointing out that there were a lot of reactions to this tweet on Twitter because of the almost, I don't want to say combative, but the boisterous nature of it, we'll say, right? And then the next morning, you had the official announcement from Alton McCaskill. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it does talk about a journey and like having some faith in the decision and having like bet on himself and those kinds of things with his faith. It was a long tweet, but I think on the whole, it was a somewhat wholesome message about like he just needed to explore this and go do it, which led to the Cameron Johnson tweet because he saw a bunch of people, and frankly, in the Alton McCaskill tweet, some stuff I'm not going to post on this, is that there are a bunch of people in the replies saying, frankly, downright nasty or mean things to Alton about doing this. And I understand the frustration with the guy leaving, but that's never necessary, right? And so Cameron Johnson tweeted out that y'all mad because boy is not trying to sink with the ship. Laughing emoji, be real. I'll gladly stay on this side. That last part, I'll gladly stay on this side, very, very clearly a dig or alluding to the Matthew Golden tweet from the night before. Also, for what it's worth, the sinking ship in this instance is very clearly the ship you and I are sitting on, the Houston Cougars. And so there's some of that going on in this as well. The retweet of that by Keyshawn Carter, who, frankly, I also enjoy following on Twitter, with a Keyshawn Carter retweeted with just quote tweet and a handful of laughing emojis, was interesting to see because Keyshawn kind of spontaneously declared for the draft, if you remember, after the season was over. I have to admit that he's not exactly on a high end of a bunch of draft boards, but there's other pro football options after college, limited options, but there are still some other ones. And who knows, he can make a camp roster. I think he's a good wide receiver and should get some sort of a camp deal at least and go show it and those kind of things. But the laughing emojis make you think, at least for a half second, was this about something other than the opportunity to play pro football? He certainly seems to, if that line in the sand was drawn by Matthew Golden, have picked the side of one Cameron Johnson, or at least think that that's funny that there are sides. Now, Jalen Emery at DB decided to tweet out that he is forever standing on business with the 100 emoji. Now, I feel like that's something about running, right? People have been alluding to some more negative comments about Alton McCaskill, about running from the Big 12 or running from the adversity or running from the competition or running from the whatever. I firmly disagree with the running from idea in a lot of ways. And so I don't need to go down those roads, but I feel like this is a shot at saying that Jalen Emery, at least, is saying that he is standing. Alex Hogan, I think, stole the show, though, because his tweet, every ship lose a few soldiers. This Houston program has never been for the weak, with an upside down smiling face emoji, kind of took off because there was a lot of people retweeting it and agreeing with it, and also quote tweeting and agreeing with it. Really, really funny take on the whole situation with the upside down emoji, but also kind of a dig at Alton as well, in that it looks like he's talking about, like, you know, some people aren't cut out for the University of Houston, or at least being there. So much so that Matthew Golden, who again is a fun Twitter follow and social media guy, retweeted Alex Hogan's tweet and said, "Can't lie, 100 Houston boys with capital BOYS. We gonna rep the city. Hashtag go Coogs." Clearly agreeing with one Alex Hogan about the Houston program not being the best thing for everyone, but being something that they are about, or that they are somehow about that life. Now, recent transfer, Stefan Cribbs, he tweeted out that he is just for the city, go Cougs. And I had pulled this one because I think it's so funny that one of the newer faces to the program is like, I'm just here for the city, hashtag go Cougs. Like, it's just like, go team, go, go sports. I thought it was also funny that, a guy that may not have been here long enough to really draw a line in the figurative sand is kind of playing both sides in a little bit of ways. But I don't, anyway, I thought it was an interesting tweet to pull out as like far as how someone else might be feeling about it. The Scott Street specialist representing the special teams tweeted out hashtag go Cougs with a Homer Simpson gif. And that is the right way to pronounce that. And he said the Homer Simpson gif at the bottom says, I want more. I just don't want to do anything to earn it. So that's a pretty clear jab, and I think that one speaks for itself. Now, Moses Alexander tweeted out what sinking ship, implying that he doesn't think that Cameron Johnson's many legs is sand on. I also think it's worth pointing out that these guys are very different positions, and Cameron Johnson obviously just had a position coach change, but Moses Alexander certainly thinks that Cameron is inaccurate, to say the least. And then quote tweeting that, Brian George, also on the football team, retweeted saying, nah, for real, we're on a plane. We're going up with a recycling emoji as if it's going up and up and up and up. Have to love, first of all, recycling, not trashing, but also this idea that these guys are just promoting the program within. You'll also notice from my screenshot here that Matthew Golden, again, fun follow on Twitter, made sure to retweet that as well. Now, across the board here, I think Andy, who is not on the football team, but friend of the show and reporter that does a lot of the dirty work and covering the Houston Cougars, and I mean that in the best possible way for listening, Andy, points out, and I think this was a good thing to take away and leave the Twitter fingers beef bit on, that only Alton McCaskill and those within the U of H program know exactly why he decided to transfer out. He should not be made a villain for whatever the reason is. It's okay to be disappointed because he is that good. But at the end of the day, it's not an excuse to disrespect him. And I think that on the whole, that's where I side with this thing the most, is I am disappointed, and I wish we got to see Alton McCaskill run the Big 12 as a Houston Cougar. I was really, really looking forward to it. If you remember back in spring ball, I did a whole All McCaskill episode about how excited I was to have him back with Emmanuel Gavi, with the Big 12, with things rolling, with a run-heavy offense. Things were clicking in the right direction to have a fun year with him. And frankly, he seems like a great kid, and he was a great running back that was fun to root for when he was here. Unfortunately, that's no longer happening. And interestingly enough, Alton McCaskill is kind of receiving a lot of pushback, hatred, naysay, etc., for making this decision. In a weird way that, I don't mean to make everyone alike, but Tremont Mark did not get that when he transferred to Arkansas and out of the basketball program. Right. And so I don't know why that is. I don't know why people feel like they can go to Twitter and rip up a kid up and down in the replies to a tweet. But that's not right. And I appreciate Andy adding that to the discourse, that that's not what this is about. This kid had to make a decision that's very difficult for him. And he thinks he's making the best decision for he and his family. And we can be upset that it's not the decision we wanted, but we can't be upset that he's making a decision. And I think that is ultimately where you have to fall on this. Now, in transitioning out of Twitter fingers and talk like that, I do want to talk about the NIL deal here in the third segment, because frankly, I think that's kind of the undercurrent in all of the emotions here. So let's talk some about those NIL deals. I think, first of all, the assumption people are making, even though for GoCoogs.com, in a very vague interview style where they didn't directly quote Alton, but they told you they talked to Alton, they were quick to point out that was, per Alton, not in his, that was not leading the decision here. First of all, my first reason I'm calling bogus is without a direct quote. I'm taking that as just an interpretation of what he said. The second thing I'll say here is, on an interpretation of anything he says, He's not going to come out and say he's doing it for the money, dude. Like, that's not how people do this. They don't just say, I had to leave for more money, unless it's like such a dramatic, obvious amount more money, especially a kid that asked for Houstonians for money last year, right? He's not going to just come out and say that. And that doesn't mean it's not okay to leave for more money. I'm not saying it's not okay, but he's never going to come out and just say that. Anyway, people are alluding to and assuming that it's the NIL, and that's why this is happening, because that's this giant new wild card in college football, and like how are you supposed to handle and deal with that? How are you supposed to handle a program that just can find a way to offer a kid a lot more money to do the exact same job? If you or I got paid a lot more money to relocate and do the exact same job and make a lot more money doing it, we do it. And that's kind of the decision some of these kids are facing. Never mind the fact that, like, if you're a confident athlete, like, you're going to see guys drafted this week in the NFL from all over college football. The idea that you have to go to a blue blood to find your way to the NFL is kind of gone, right? Anyway, this wave of NIL started just before Deion made it to the Power 5, right, with the Supreme Court ruling in 2021. But since Deion got to Colorado, the money has poured in to Colorado, where, guys were making 20, 30K last year. They had one football player and a linebacker, Josh Chandler Sameda. He was making $175,000 last year as a football player, right? And NIL deals. And that's decent chunk of change, but most guys are making considerably less than that at Colorado. That's no longer the case for the guys still on the roster at Colorado. First of all, Deion's son is estimated to be bringing in a $1.6 million in NIL deals with himself, right? Now, I have to say that, like, that's assuming a couple things, and the biggest of which, I guess, that he's bringing his deals with him from Jackson State to Colorado. And some of those are like estimations based on he's supposed to post this many times or do this many acts of service or whatever for the companies, right? That's a lot to say the very, very least for a guy that has not taken a snap on a Power 5 football field. I think he's very good. I don't mean to send any shots at Shedeur Sanders, but that's a lot of money, right? Similarly, Travis Hunter, who you remember was like the number one corner in the country that committed Jackson State to go with Deion and is now transferred to Colorado to play with Deion or whatever, is apparently also bringing about $1.3 million in NIL deals with him. Those are kind of the top end of the top end as far as what you'll see publicly recorded. But those guys clearly make their money, both either as his son and quarterback or as his star player, for going with Deion Sanders, right? Now, what I will say is that Deion himself maintains he doesn't sell the program on this. He does not go to recruits' houses and tell them that this is going to make them rich. Playing at Colorado is what's going to make them rich. He sells, he's got the NFL connections. He understands the NFL game and all of those good, tough love kind of things about, like, we're going to make you compete. We're going to make you the best, right? Those are all the things he sells. But the thing that is undeniable is the way that Deion walks in a room and elevates a program clearly has an effect on NIL, because NIL is all marketing money. And if you can have your marketing even somewhat adjacently connected to an electric figure like Deion Sanders, it would be bad business sense not to do it. And so what you're seeing is, even if he's not directly pushing it or even directly cares for it, Deion Sanders has an impact on the growth of NIL. For reference, last season, again, most players at Colorado were making no more than $20,000 or $30,000. Since Deion got there, Colorado collectives have poured in, including one that is giving everyone on the roster, that's scholarship, walk-on, etc., like $25,000 for doing what was previously very normal community service that the football team did as a team. That's more or less paying someone for being on a team and fulfilling basic team obligations. And they're paying $25,000. That's that in itself, that single payment is what guys were averaging across the board last year. The money is pouring in. And what's interesting in this is that that's because that's such a team-wide deal, these team-wide deals, much like the Daspit Law Firm deal with the University of Houston. The team-wide deals, kids can look up. Kids can hear about from other kids. This does not have to be dirty work. This does not have to be sneaky back alley, on a burner phone, hey, I got your money in this. No, this is as simple as Deion's a guy, hey, what are you making there? Well, we all get this. Bet, thanks. That's as simple as the conversation goes, and that's not illegal. And that's kind of tampering that will never be able to be regulated because you can't just tell kids they can't talk to kids at their programs, right? That's their high school friends, their friends from camps, they're like the recruits slate of things. Those are people they know just because they know them, right? Now, I will say that it does not feel like Colorado is at a place where they're out of reach of where Houston will grow to, but they are very clearly at a different place than Houston is, right? The Daspit deal, the law firm, again, 7-figure deal with the football team, and the guys are so grateful for it because it's a big deal. It is a legitimate changer in their style of living in the city of Houston. But that averages to just under $12,000 per scholarship kid. Now, again, $12,000 is a ton of money for doing some, fairly simple work to promote a law firm. It's not to say that that's not like appreciated. However, it's the first step toward these things, right? Linking Coogs, HOUNIL, Hoop and Holler, these collectives that Houston has are still new. The Colorado one or the one at UT Austin, the ones at USC, the ones at Alabama, Miami, these big NIL programs. I mean, Miami more or less bought their men's basketball team that got to the Final Four off this stuff, right? They have been heavily invested in for these reasons since 2021 when the Supreme Court case got ruled. And so where Lincoln Cougs is signing their first football team-wide deal for that law firm deal, right? We're just a little behind. I don't think there's any reason to see if Houston can't find the money to put into this, but it is going to require people putting the money into this. The team-wide deal being less than half, it's not that the just under $12,000 isn't good for the kids. It's that it's less than half of a single team-wide deal that's happening at Colorado, right? Now, I will say that Lincoln Cougs is adding players and portfolios to their company by the day. And for what it's worth, by the end of the basketball season, a marketable guy that was atop the country like Marcus Sasser in the basketball season was one of the 10 highest paid college basketball players. Again, the money is there. He was working with companies like Doritos, right? Like national interest can be drawn to the University of Houston, but we got to kind of work together to make it happen because that's what their schools have already done. Now, interestingly enough, this will all be for naught if someday in the near future, all 3 Cougars that we're talking about today don't end up at Colorado. So all be for naught if a year from now we're looking at Deion Sanders to move on to another football program because continue to climb the coaching ladder. But for the time being, it feels very, very front of mind and very, very much what is happening at the University of Houston. Now, if you disagree with me, if you want to talk about it, if you got insight as to other NIL deals, or you got other ideas about what's happening at the University of Houston, as mentioned in the Twitter Fingers segment, find me on Twitter at PAINSWRTH512 on Twitter, Instagram, and all of the various social media handles. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Locked on Cougs today to talk some more about transferring, things like that. Tomorrow, we're back to talk about Clayton Tune in the NFL draft because I think he's a long-term pro. I think someone's going to decide that this weekend as well, and we'll see it happen. Fingers crossed. Again, thank you all so much for listening today. Locked on Cougs, Private Locked on Podcast Network. As a member, I'm going to recommend that you go listen to Locked on Big 12 to kind of get your mind right for the conference we're heading into. Josh does a great job with that show, so go check him out. Locked on Cougs, again, proud member, Locked on Podcast Network. That means your team every day. Go Cougs.